Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. If you are joining for the first time, I appreciate your time. It is important to know that the continent of Africa have come to the realization that the geopolitical environment has shifted and the continent has refused to stay on the sideline. In this episode, I will be exploring the famous South African ambassador who has come out to lambast the United States of America, basically saying that irrespective of your position with regards to the country of South Africa, we do have some principles that we will stand on it irrespective of their particular perception. However, the country of South Africa considers its relationship with the United States of America. South Africa carried the African flag to the country of Ukraine and to Russia. They were called beggars. They were called begging mission. They were laughed at. They were called the Africans delegation. To an extent, we all have seen how South Africa at the moment is leading the Russian-Ukrainian peace contribution. That's the reason why the ambassador, Mr. Rasool, came out in a recent interview with a TRT television station, and he laid it out like never before seen. I have important video to play. Like I said, geopolitics is a brutal game, and Africa has refused to stay on the sideline. It wants to make its voice heard. Make no mistake, the continent of Africa is observing the relationship between the country of the United States of America and the country of South Africa. More importantly, the current administration in the US has accused South Africa of doing some bad things. We all saw how the current United States of America Secretary of State basically expelled South African ambassador using Twitter, what South Africa called mega diplomacy. It is important to know that despite the US's position threatening South Africa regards to AGOA, which is on life support, like I said, at the moment, South Africa previously experienced incredible pressure from Russian-Ukrainian war, and African countries were forced to make decisions to choose between Russia or Ukraine, and some that refused, like the country of Eritrea, that voted the United Nations resolution, and a host of other countries across the world. But South Africa, irrespective of your belief, irrespective of your perception of the country, has made it clear that irrespective of the negotiation they are ready to discuss with the United States in terms of trade, collaboration, partnership in a whole lot of areas, there is one thing that the country of South Africa would not back down, according to Mr. Rasool. Let's play this clip.
Do you think that the situation that you found yourself, or the crisis that we have right now, is linked to the decision by South Africa to take Israel to the International Court of Justice?
I was told time and again by the members of Congress, members of Senate, members of the administration, think tanks, that there can be no discussion on trade negotiations with South Africa unless you drop the case in the International Court of Justice against Israel. And that was the one bottom line I went with to the United States from the entirety of South African society, from the president, from the minister of international relations, that our bottom line is that we will not drop our case against Israel in the International Court of Justice, because if we drop our case, who will hold Israel accountable, and what hope will the Palestinians have?
It is important to know that African officials, experts, consultants, ambassadors working in international capitals should pay attention that the geopolitical environment has shifted so fast, and they have to stand up to support, to speak on behalf of their countries, irrespective of the difficulties that they will face in those particular capitals. If it means to lose your particular diplomatic credential, so be it, according to Mr. Rasool, where he came out clear and said this.
Ebrahim Rasool has been at the forefront of politics, policy, and international engagement. A former premier of the Western Cape and South Africa's ambassador to the United States, he brings in a wealth of experience and insights in leadership, identity, and diplomacy in a rapidly changing world. As global dynamics shift and Africa's voice grows louder on the world stage, what lessons can we learn from South Africa's journey, and what role does the African continent play in shaping tomorrow's global order? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Why is being honest or speaking the truth to the power, which is a very noble trait, kind of frowned upon, or is not such a great trait for a diplomat?
I think that there is an orthodox diplomacy that says that you should maybe appease your host country, overlook their faults, and not vigorously defend your own country when it is the victim of palpable lies and dishonesty, such as that Afrikaners, the white South African tribe in South Africa, are the victims of a genocide. Their land is being confiscated, and you cannot smile through a whole lot of lies like that when you know that the negative impact is going to be severe on your continent. And so I don't think that there is an appetite by a very thin-skinned host to actually hear even academic truths about what is going on. The global order is changing. I think that we are in the midst of a major epochal economic shift in the world. And I think that Africa will find itself increasingly in the eye of the storm, simply because it has a third of what that economic epoch requires of the world today.
Despite the perception of the United States of America and other geopolitical partners, Mr. Rasool clearly said that in terms of a particular conference that he had, talking about the particular relationship between the United States of America and the country of South Africa, he said he did not accuse or lambast or basically picked up to a party or a personality. He did not accuse an individual. He was basically saying that for them, based on their historical perspective, if something walks like a dog, if it snags like a dog, it is a dog for them, and they can see the signal. That's the reason why he was talking about the aspect of a phenomenon that has been exported based on his own perspective. Let's listen to what he has to say with regards to this particular very important aspect in terms of this interview.
When I was looking at the definition of who a diplomat is, a definition that struck me is that a diplomat is someone who will remember the lady's birthday but will forget her age. What do you think you should or could have forgotten about the Trump 2.0 America?
I think that I did not forget the birthday, and I certainly remembered not to mention the age. That's why I chose a very specific forum into which to speak. I did not attack the personality, nor the party, nor the administration. What I spoke about was, if you want to understand what is in the mind of the birthday boy, you've got to understand that they are choosing South Africa as a target because there is a case in the International Court of Justice that makes the birthday boy very angry. And secondly, you've got to know that the reason for making our former oppressor the victim of a genocide and a land reform process is because there is a commonality of whiteness that goes through the MAGA movement and the Afrikaner movement.
Were you shocked about how aggressive the reaction that eventually led to your expulsion?
I think there was shock. And the shock is at how thin the skin is, because you expect someone who can dish it out to also accept it.
Mr. Rasool was asked if he regrets saying what he said in the United States of America. However, Mr. Rasool has said this over and over. He stands by his position based on his own perspective. He's very concerned with regards to how the image of his country would have been rubbed into the mud. However, as an ambassador representing his country, he has all the right to an extent to talk on the particular situation and to defend his country. That particular message, if he would not have come out, would have clouded the country of South Africa and the continent of Africa entirely, and that could rub wrongly with the people of South Africa and the region at large. That's the reason why to an extent, he did not regret on what he said, and he said this regards to that particular area.
And do you think at any point you should have maybe handled this issue in any other way than you did?
It's a question I ask myself a lot. What could I have said that is different? And the conclusion I come to is that before I said what I said, they had already cut off all our HIV/AIDS money, the PEPFAR grant. They had already closed the USAID office in South Africa and all its programs. They had already cut off the research money through the World Health Organization. They had already cut off all the money for our just energy transition in South Africa. They were already on the way to 25% tariffs. AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunities Act, was already in the promised to be ended. And most importantly, they had made a promise to themselves that I will be out very soon. And so the fact of the matter is, when I think through all of that, you must at least end up with your dignity intact. You cannot be indignified and then still be silent in the face of so much lying and so much damage to your country. Because at the end of the day, the damage to our country can be quantified at, just in aid, 8 billion rands worth of damage, 20,000 health workers, 200 NGOs and clinics that had to close, and the possibility of massive reinfection of HIV and AIDS.
Mr. Rasool was asked about his coming back home, how he perceived that particular aspect. He said, it's not about me, it's about the global community and the people of South Africa, the way it resonated with them, that they felt it, they knew it, based on their history, that there was a particular thing in the air, according to him, that to an extent, the heroic welcome that he received in South Africa and globally paint the picture on a particular phenomenon that does not sit well with the country of South Africa, the continent of Africa, and more importantly, in some global countries that have experienced what he called a particular phenomenon. Let's roll the clip.
And then after the expulsion, you come home to a hero's welcome. How did you feel about that? And what does it tell you about the whole situation? And also, as much as it was a hero's welcome in South Africa, even out of South Africa, within the continent, there appeared to be a lot of support.
Ordinary citizens of South Africa, of Africa, and of the world have a real sense that truth-telling is required, because the damage that is being wrought against the world is enormous. Just a few days after I had left, we saw the stock market stumble. We saw inflation rising. We saw tariffs go out across the world. We saw the effective end of the African Growth and Opportunities Act. So the point of the matter is, there is no rational base to speak to the United States. They only really at this moment understand the language of counterpower, and that's what China is doing. They only understand the language of standing up. That's what Canada is doing. And so weakness is what is seen when you try to be too nice.
Quite often, South Africa has drawn parallels to its apartheid era to what is happening in Palestine.
More importantly, Mr. Rasool talked about their particular, or his reaction based on the discussions and the meeting that he was having at that particular time, on where he was accused based on the comments which he made. He said the South Africa's history has a lot to do with regards to how it informed the foreign policy of the country. These are strategic times in the continent of Africa's history, and that particular history informs them that if they can sense it, if they can feel it, if they can see it, no matter how it is, like I said before, if it works like a dog, if it moves like a dog, to them, it is a dog. That's why that particular history will always inform them on how they engage their strategic partner. Let's listen to him.
How do historical experience and apartheid influence South Africa's foreign policy? And why has South Africa been this vocal?
Our memory of being denied human rights, of being jailed for our beliefs, of being divided by race, of being the victims of massacres. Our memory is very, very fresh as South Africans, and therefore what we do is we react instinctively when we see other victims of the very things that we have suffered ourselves, for which we sacrificed. And most importantly, we feel the need to step up for those who are the victims of those matters, especially when their oppression is multiplied.
With regards to tariff, Mr. Rasool was clear. He made a clear position on where the country of South Africa stands, that irrespective of the tariffs that have been levied upon the country, talking about the baseline at the moment, as we all see what will happen, that the country of South Africa has lost a lot, that will, to an extent, before he even made the statement in the United States of America, South Africa lost a lot of his particular support that it received from the country of the United States of America. In that case, there was just no particular reason why he shouldn't make that particular comment. It's important to know that, like he said, he never pinpoints a particular personality. He was talking about a phenomenon. But based on that particular conversation, a lot of issues like PEPFAR, more importantly, the USAID in the country of South Africa, offices, and a whole lot of other important organizations that in terms of collaboration and partnership were closed down already. So his comment had nothing to do. The United States of America has already moved really swiftly based on the executive decision to move ahead with their particular policy with regards to the country of South Africa. And at that time, it was immaterial, irrespective of what he was about to say.
All right, let's also talk about the ongoing tariff situation. South Africa again. How is South Africa likely to be impacted by these tariffs?
The one obvious thing is that while we are all preparing for the African Growth and Opportunities Act to be reauthorized in September 2025, effectively the rug is being pulled out from under us already, which is a soft signal that there is no African Growth and Opportunities Act. And so, for example, a competitive advantage of South Africa on the US market was that we send affordable cars to the United States. That's now 25% subjected to tariffs. The same with aluminium and the same with steel. And so we can expect that the 10% tariffs that now cuts across all African continent will be applied to goods that also go as a goer. So that's the first shock, that the African Growth and Opportunities is being completed. The second one is that a lot of African entrepreneurs who have developed themselves with the predictability of trade with the United States will suddenly now find themselves in far more difficult circumstances in terms of doing that trade to the United States. And I think that the US is making a fundamental error, not only with Africa, but certainly with Africa, in the sense that you choose whether you save on tax-free and tariff-free trade, or whether you spend on migration and security challenges when people can't find a predictable pattern of doing business with the United States.
The most important aspect in regards to Mr. Rasool's interview with the TRT television came at a point when he was asked, how would you, to an extent, perceive Africa's voice in the global community. It's exactly what we've been talking about in regards to this particular channel. More importantly, African countries are pushing so fast at the moment to re-diversify their relationship, to work alongside other strategic partners that provide them technology, know-how, and more importantly, finances that they can invest, like how China has developed and support African countries in several areas. However, he cautioned by saying that individual African countries should not attack those superpowers, but they should work in a kind of a groupings, talking about BRICS, the African Continental Free Trade Area, regional organizations like SABC, SADC, and also CEMAC, a whole lot of other institutions, talking about the G20, that Africa should embed itself in this international organization. In that way, it will weaken these international big countries that want to subjugate and that want to bully African nations. That this is a strategy. Recently, we created a video that talked on that aspect, on how the country of Kenya traveled to the country of China. We saw how the president of Egypt spoke with the country of France. We saw how the Ethiopian leader was talking to Vietnam and a number of countries. There is a strategy in place. So the ambassador was talking from the point of experience and also from a diplomatic strategic engagement. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Still on the global stage, how can African countries, including South Africa, assert themselves more effectively on global matters without being caught up in, the tug of war of, Russia, the US, and ensure that its matters or its voice is heard?
I think you don't have to look for conflict with any superpower, because the balance of forces are enormously stacked against us. But you have to build concentric circles of partnerships and increasing power. This is the time for South Africa to be stronger in SADC. It's the time for SADC to be stronger in the African Union. It is time for the African Union to be more assertive in its partnerships with Europe, with Asia, with South America. It is more important for South Africa and the African Union to direct what happens in BRICS, so that BRICS is the shield behind which we move forward. And it is very important for BRICS to be a coherent, unfragmented entity within the G20. I think your strength is in your partnerships, not in how you poke the bear. Because the bear will see the partnerships and will know that there is an alternative world order developing, not because of the choice of everyone in there, but because of the capricious actions that has been occasioned.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rasool, for your insights and for speaking to us.
Let me know what you think in regards to Mr. Rasool's decision in terms of his particular perception based on the United States of America's phenomenon, what he called phenomenon. And again, why African countries and ambassadors who are in diplomatic capitals should come out clear and feel free to defend their countries at any stage of their particular diplomatic career. That it's important at this stage that the African voice cannot be silenced, because the geopolitical environment has changed. We all see countries are standing up to each other. It's important for Africa to select its partners irrespective of the noise coming from geopolitical capitals. However, Mr. Rasool has made it clear that he will not back down with regards to his diplomatic credentials, that he believed that it was his responsibility to defend his country, and in this case the country of South Africa. I want to thank you for watching. We'll be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Smash the like button and share the video. And we thank the TRT television for this amazing interview. We shall be looking forward to joining you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.